Hi, this is James from Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to look at the 2 to 4 player game Terraternity. Terraternity is going to be a game where you're going to try to save the world. You're going to try to save the environment from the burning of fossil fuels and try to make countries carbon neutral in an effort to save the world for future generations. We're going to go down to the table here. I'm going to give you a general overview of how to play the game, but note that this is a prototype. So everything in here is going to be subject to change through the Kickstarter. So my goal is to just give you a general idea of how the game plays and feels. Once I do that, we'll come back and I'll give you my final thoughts on the game. So let's go ahead down to the table and check this out. Okay, so this is what a typical setup of Terraternity would look like. Now, a couple things to note that, again, this is a prototype, so all these pieces and components are subject to change. Now, I will say this is one of the nicest looking prototypes I've ever had. It's a very high quality prototype, so I can't imagine the final product's probably going to be amazing. You can even see they have these like dual layer boards that are really cool in there. But in a game of Terraternity, you have two different modes you can play. You can play either cooperatively or you can play competitively. If you play with the cooperative mode, you're going to use these two tracks over here, this track here, and you're going to try to make 5 carbon neutral countries before 5 disasters occur. In the competitive game, you're going to try to get your own 5, and so 5 carbon neutral countries. And the first person to complete this will win the game. And they will need to do this before 5 disasters occur or everyone loses the game. So that is basically how you want to win the game, through the cooperative or competitive version. You will pick one of these players with these really cool player mats. You will put down your power plants, the 3 different types of power plants, and they have these really cool wooden components to it. And again, this is a prototype, so that can change. You're going to get 6 flags. You're also going to get 3 workers, and you're going to place one of your workers on the turn track. The game will also end, I did forget to mention, after you have taken your 10th turn. The game will also end. So those are 2 conditions for both the cooperative and the competitive, that the game will end and you could all lose if you didn't complete your objective for the 8 victories for cooperative, or someone didn't get 5 carbon neutral countries. You will also start the game with 4 of every resource, including 4 money, and randomly pick whoever you want to have go first. But as a side mention, I will mention that with the prototype copy of the game, I had this sent with me, which is a free tree planted to replace the game. So this game is really cool. I know it's all about low carbon output, taking care of making countries carbon neutral, but the game itself is also about having a low footprint. So I like that a lot. I know there's a lot planned for the Kickstarter to try to limit how much carbon footprint this game causes itself. So, also you'll get 3 dice. Those are your actions you can take during a turn. Now, you will also take 2 action cards, 2 country cards, and 2 energy cards. And on the first round of the game, you are only going to play cards. So you'll notice that here is basically how your turn works. You're going to start the new year turn. You're going to collect your CO2 first, then your resources, Then you're going to get active. You're going to take your actions, which are going to be here. I'll explain in a second. You can hire workers. You could do trades, so you could trade with other players or the bank. Or you could do your special. All the stuff's over here that you can do. Now, it will be good to mention now that each of the players has like a sort of asymmetric power. It's a 3-card deck. 1 card is bad, adding 3 CO2 to the globe. I'll explain what that is in a second. And 2 cards are good. So the techie lets you basically draw cards from the decks and potentially get cards you need. The medic lets you heal 1 worker, 2 worker. There's a bad card. And there's different things or disasters that can occur that can cause your workers to end up in the hospital. So that's good. And your scientist here lets you set 1 resource to a 1-to-1. And this one's another one, 1-to-1, and get 2 trades. That has to do with the market. The market actually starts out, I believe, 1 or 2-to-1. So you could trade in your goods. So you could, if you want to get, if you wanted to get a water, you could trade in 2 of these fossil fuels and get 1 water. But as soon as you do, it goes up. It goes 3-to-1, then 4-to-1, and the scientist can reset that for you. So it's really important card. And then you also have the creator. You can rebuild, reduce build time of any one project 1 year, and hire a worker for free. This one's really cool, and this one's 2 years. So these are actually really worth the risk of potentially having to put 3 CO2 cubes on there. And any player can do the Be Special action. And they're listed what their benefits potentially are on the board itself. So on the first turn of the game, what you're going to do is you're probably going to take a look, and you want to play probably a country. You could play an action card if you want. They're generally all good. And you may want to play, you could play as many countries as you want. You can play as many cards as you want. At the end of the turn, you're going to draw back up to 6. Now, when you play a country, there's a couple things you can have to pay attention to. Now, this is a pretty nice country. Generally, the carbon output or fossil fuel output is a lot higher, but France is pretty good. This means that it has 90% of the country uses alternative energy and 1% or 10% uses fossil fuels. It has numbers on here to explain all that stuff, and then it has a QR code here you can scan for more information about this country. Now, when you play a card like this, what's going to happen is instantaneously when you put it, whatever number is here is the amount of cubes. So you'll put, I have all this jumbled up here, but the amount of cubes you have on here, you're going to have to put on this tower. Now the rules for placing it on the tower is you place it with your hand, and you can't move with your hand any other cubes, but you can move a cube with a cube, the cube you're holding. It's generally good to put them on one at a time, but you can, you could do multiple. Now I know outside this prototype there is a deck of cards that change the way, make it more challenging for the dexterity portion of this game. So you're going to place that out. This number here doesn't mean anything yet. This is going to be green cubes that you could get. Now, as another action, you could play another country. You may or may not want to do that, but you'll also have to, again, put out the 2 carbon and be good. Now, I have some power plants here, and that's basically countries. That's how they work. But you're going to try to carbon neutralize them. So you're going to try to use these different power plants to do so. And there's a couple things you're going to look at. One is going to be the amount of green cubes it produces. Sometimes it also gives you yellow when it's completed. And then also the amount of cubes that you're going to have to put on the tower every year, and the amount of years that it takes. And then you also have these assignments of workers, and then the resources needed down on the bottom. So if I wanted to play this, what would I end up having to do is I would put this on top of this country right here. And all these are actions too, by the way. So If you want to activate a country, you're going to go here. You're going to play your country. So I played my country. All right. Then I'm going to go ahead and place my flag. We'll just do this all in order on France. So I'll put my flag on France to show that I'm doing something there. If I want to play another card, this energy card, I'd have to go to create energy. The first thing I would have to do after I put my worker there is I'd have to pay 3 money. So I'd play 3 money here, 3 fossil fuel, and 3 metal. And now I can place this card. When I place the card, I have to look at a couple more things. One is I'm going to have to look and see that I'm going to have to put 6 cubes on there. So I have to carefully place these cubes on here. Now in a cooperative game, you may or may not want to be nice how you place these. It depends what you're doing, because if the tower collapses, a disaster is going to occur, but we'll go over that in a second. So I put the cubes on there. So I then also have to put a white cube on here. And I do believe I forgot to bring out the white cubes. So you'll place a white cube on there for every year. And what you're going to do is at the end of the year, we'll just use a die for right now. So this is 1 year. So I'll put this at 1 year. But normally you'd put a white cube on it. 1 year. And at the beginning of every round, I can remove a cube. When all the cubes are gone, this becomes completed, as long as I've hired either both a creator and a scientist for this one, which is going to be on the hire action. There's another cool thing. So once I've done that, I have a creator and a scientist on here. I will then take a look at this. Will be completed. I will gain the green cubes and the yellow cube here. Well, carbon neutral will do that. So let's take a step back. So I will check, after I complete this, I'm going to check to see if this total green number is higher or than this black number here. And in this case, we have 14 to 1. So in this case, I'm going to get a good windfall. I'm going to get 13 green cubes, which get placed on here. So when I place these 13 green cubes, the instant I place it on here, the cubes get locked in, and I will gain a yellow. Then I still have some more. I'll put those in. I hit that yellow first, I'll get another yellow. All right. Now, if these aren't filled, like I have 2 yellows here and this isn't filled yet and I get another yellow, I can't actually get that yellow. So that's a different rule there too. But so I'll put all 12 here. I'll get another yellow, so I have 3 yellow. I will get 1 more green because it's 13, and this will be in my little pool that I can use. And I get a yellow for this development, or this card here. And so I would have 4 yellows and 4 greens. And this would become carbon neutral. I would put it in my completed set. Not turn it sideways. Turn it sideways means something else. I would put it with my completed ones, and I would get 1 of these. Once I've completed again 5 of these in the competitive version, I would win the game. Now, a couple things I didn't mention is as soon as you put this out, you could put 1 of these guys on there. That's what you get. Now, if an opponent completes your thing, they would actually get all that stuff. So you have to keep that in mind. The other thing when you're hiring workers, if you place a worker on here at the beginning of every round, if this is still a round, you're going to get the resources listed on the top. So if I had a worker on here, in the next round I would get 4 water, 1 gold, 1 steel, metal, every round. So sometimes it's worth the risk to continually, especially with this one where you're only putting like 1 coal on there, to start collecting these resources. The push your luck element on this is if I didn't finish this, and on my turn I put a cube on here, and the tower fell, or a cube fell off. So if that all happens, then a disaster occurs. My turn ends immediately. I am going to grab one of these cards, and bad things happen. Now you're going to use these red cubes for this. You're going to take a look, and it says release 6 red cubes 4 units above the board. And then this always happens no matter what, place 1 worker into the hospital. So this again talking about the hospital thing happening. They're going to be placed here. They're going to go, if nothing changes, this is going to be 3 rounds before you're going to get your worker back. But you can again use the medic to get those back. You will also look to see if, when you drop these cubes, if they go near any of your flags. So if these cubes go near any flags with the radius shown on here, you're going to have these negative effects. If it's 1 cube, you're going to lose a yellow. If it's 2 cubes, you're going to lose 2 fossil fuels and 5 steel. If it's 3 cubes, all that stuff on the bottom. So a lot of stuff. Disasters are very bad, so you're going to try not to have them happen. And again, when 5 disasters occur, if no one's won, the game ends, as the world has perished. So that's a couple of the actions. So that's activate country. We went over create energy. We went over hire worker. Activate mega, we're going to talk about in a second. The other things you can do are, you could do the B specials, which we talked about. You could also do trades. You could trade with a bank, which we talked about, which is going to be whatever the rate is at the time. So at the beginning of the game, it's 2 to 1. And then so if you trade for the water at 2 to 1, then the next time it's 3 to 1 and so on, unless you use the scientist to reduce it. The other thing you could do is you could trade with anything with a player. So as long as you trade something, you can trade anything with a player. In the cooperative games, this happens a lot more often. You can use skill cubes into a mega. So what that means here is you can take 2 of these yellow cubes if you have them and build a mega plant. And if you look, there's going to be, like, let's say this solar one. So if I would build this solar one here, another action I could take in the future is action cards into activate mega. Sorry, action cards into mega. You have some action cards that can potentially do stuff, where you could trade in so many action cards to be able to make a mega. But that's that. So what I do in mega, I could place this plant on here and immediately finish the plant. So that comes into an advantage when you have one that takes a bunch of years and stuff. You could also use this on opponents' plants. So if you make that country carbon neutral on your turn and it belongs to a opponent, you're going to get the victory point for completing it, and you're going to get the cards for scoring if needed. So there's a lot of advantages to the mega plants. Oh, actually, you never place these workers on here. I'm sorry. You're going to be using these dice. The dice are things. I don't know what I was thinking there. But yeah, so you're going to use the dice to place as your workers. Because there's a cool thing that can happen too. You can actually get more dice. So one of the things I haven't mentioned yet at the start of your turn, you're going to move this guy 1 step forward to show you took your turn. You're going to take this star and flip it over, and whatever it is, you get. So in this case, you're going to get a green cube. Sometimes it's a white star. If it's a white star, you're going to get another die for an action for that turn. After that turn, you lose the die. So I did forget to mention that. And again, I'm not going over all the rules. I'm just giving you a general gist of the overall game because this is a prototype. So most of the stuff can be changed or subject to change, but the overall idea I'm helping you get. The other thing you can do with these loose green cubes, or ones where you don't have this locked in at the top, is you can spend these green cubes to prevent from having to place that many black cubes. So on my turn, if this thing was still hanging around, I'd have to, with this plant, I would have to put 1 black cube plus 7 cubes. So that's a lot of cubes. And I'm like, I don't like that tower. I'm going to use 3 of these green cubes to reduce it down to 4 black cubes that I have to place out. And that basically, in a nutshell, is how to play Terraternity. So let's go ahead back up to the table here. I'm going to give you my final thoughts on this prototype. So Terraternity is a fun game. It is a lot more difficult than it seems. You can have to add up a ton of those black cubes on top of that globe. So it's very deceptive. You can start out the game and you're going pretty well, but as the game goes by and you're stacking more and more cubes on that globe, the tension grows. There's a lot in just play the game through. I suggest probably in the first game to play cooperative so everyone gets an idea of how the game plays, and then you can do competitive. But I highly suggest this is a game that you're going to play once, get the mechanics down, understand what's happening, and then play it again and you'll be better at it. Because the big portion of this game is managing when you're putting down those countries and those power plants and resolving that with regards to how many cubes you have on that globe. Because there is a dexterity element to this game, which is that globe. And depending on how good your group is with stacking will be what you're going to employ for your strategy to potentially win. So I can't go over component quality very much because, again, this is a prototype, so it's subject to change. But I will say that this is one of the best looking prototypes I've ever had. It is amazing. So I can't imagine how much more awesome the Kickstarter is going to be. Even if it didn't change at all, it's great. The component quality on this is awesome. But again, it's a prototype, so any of that can change. A couple other things with the game is that the decisions that you make throughout the game on your turn with your 3 different actions are very impactful. So again, I got through that first game. I think potentially, depending on the group, that I'm not very good at dexterity. So that would be one concern during the game. I still love this game, I still have a lot of fun, but I'm not good at dexterity. So getting those 5 disasters out is not hard when you're playing with me. So if you're playing with someone like me, then you're going to have to try to figure out a strategy to not put cubes on that globe as much as possible and try to complete those carbon neutral countries very, very quickly. So that's my thoughts on Terraternity. It's a good game. I enjoyed it a lot. Now, in the future, we're going to see a review on the card version of this because it comes out with a Euro and a card version of the game. So for now, thank you for watching.